My husband's business trips are to the same city we live in, and what he's doing in those hotels is illegal. I found the hotel receipt in Aaron's jacket pocket while sorting laundry. The Grandview Plaza Hotel, room 412, 3 nights last week when he'd supposedly been in Denver for a pharmaceutical conference. Except the Grandview Plaza was 15 minutes from our house in the same city we'd lived in for 8 years. I stood in our laundry room holding that receipt, my hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. Aaron had kissed me goodbye at the airport, texted me photos of Denver's skyline from what he claimed was his hotel window, called me every night saying he missed me. All of it was lies. He'd been staying at a hotel in our own city, pretending to be 1,000 miles away. My first thought was the obvious one: affair. My husband was cheating on me and using fake business trips as cover. But why stay local? Why not actually go to Denver if you're going to lie anyway? The logic didn't make sense, which made it somehow worse. I took photos of the receipt with my phone, then put it back exactly where I'd found it. Aaron would be home in 2 hours from his current trip to Seattle. I spent those 2 hours spiraling through possibilities, each one more painful than the last. Another woman seemed most likely, but the local hotel angle bothered me. If you're having an affair, you go somewhere your wife won't accidentally see you. You don't book a room 15 minutes from home and risk running into neighbors or friends, unless the affair was with someone who also couldn't travel, someone local who had their own reasons for secrecy. I pulled up the Grandview Plaza website and called the front desk. "Hi, my husband stayed with you last week in room 412. He thinks he left his phone charger. Can you check if it's been turned in?" The receptionist put me on hold, came back 2 minutes later. "I'm showing that room was occupied by Aaron Whitfield. Is that your husband?" My stomach dropped hearing her confirm his name. "Yes, that's him. Did you find the charger?" She hadn't, but it didn't matter. I'd confirmed Aaron had really stayed there. When Aaron came home that evening, wheeling his suitcase through the door with his usual tired smile, I watched him like I was seeing a stranger. He kissed my cheek, asked what was for dinner, complained about flight delays in Seattle. The lies came so easily to him, so naturally, that I wondered how long this had been going on. "How was the conference?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Aaron launched into a detailed story about pharmaceutical rep presentations and networking dinners. He'd always been good at details, at making his stories believable. "Show me photos from Seattle. I've never been, and I'm curious what it looks like." His face didn't change, didn't show any panic. My phone died most of the trip. The hotel had terrible outlets in the rooms, and my charger kept disconnecting. I barely got any pictures. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. I nodded and smiled and served dinner while my mind raced. After dinner, Aaron said he needed to catch up on emails from the trip. I waited until he was absorbed in his laptop, then went to our bedroom and called the front desk at the Grandview Plaza again. "Hi, this is going to sound strange, but I'm trying to plan a surprise for my husband. He stayed in room 412 last week and really loved it. Can you tell me if that room is available next month? I want to book the same one." The receptionist checked her system. "Room 412 is actually reserved for your husband again next week. Same 3-night stay. Would you like me to add a note about the surprise?" My blood went cold. "Next week? No, that's fine. I'll call back." I hung up and sat on the edge of our bed, trying to process this. Aaron had another local hotel stay scheduled for next week. He hadn't mentioned any upcoming trips, which meant he hadn't manufactured the lie yet. I'd have a chance to catch him in the act, to find out what he was really doing in these hotels. Over the next few days, I watched Aaron carefully. He worked from home as a pharmaceutical sales consultant, spending most days on video calls with doctors and hospitals. He seemed normal, affectionate, present. There were no suspicious phone calls, no secret texting, no signs of an affair that I could detect. On Thursday morning, Aaron came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. "Babe, I forgot to mention, I have to go to Phoenix next week for a client meeting. 3 days, leaving Monday morning." I turned around slowly. "Phoenix? That's sudden." Aaron shrugged. "The hospital there wants to see our new cardiac medication line. Big potential contract. I have to go in person to close it." He was lying directly to my face, planning another fake trip while booking room 412 at the Grandview Plaza. I forced a smile. "Okay, I'll miss you." That weekend, I hired a private investigator. Her name was Lydia Chen, and she specialized in infidelity cases. I met her at a coffee shop downtown and showed her the hotel receipt, explained about the fake trips. "I need to know what my husband is doing in that hotel room. I need to know who he's meeting." Lydia reviewed the receipt and took notes. "Most affairs are pretty straightforward. He's probably meeting someone regularly. The local angle is unusual but not unheard of. Some people prefer to keep their affairs close to home for convenience." She quoted me a rate of $200 an hour plus expenses. I signed her contract and transferred the retainer, money from my separate account that Aaron didn't monitor. Lydia would start surveillance on Monday when Aaron checked into the Grandview Plaza. Monday morning arrived and Aaron kissed me goodbye with his usual routine. "I'll call you when I land in Phoenix. Love you." I watched him drive away with his suitcase. Watched him turn left toward the airport, but I knew he'd eventually circle back toward the Grandview Plaza. Lydia texted me at noon. Subject checked into hotel at 11:43 a.m., room 412, alone. I spent the day trying to work from home, but my graphic design project sat untouched on my computer. Every hour, Lydia sent updates. Subject ordered room service at 1:15 p.m., still alone. Subject left room at 3:30 p.m., drove to medical supply warehouse on Industrial Boulevard. Returned to hotel at 4:45 p.m. with large box. That detail caught my attention. Medical supply warehouse? What was Aaron getting there? At 6 p.m., Lydia called me directly. You need to see this. Can you meet me near the hotel? I drove to the parking structure across from the Grandview Plaza, where Lydia was parked with camera equipment. She showed me photos on her laptop. Aaron entering the hotel alone. Aaron leaving and going to the warehouse. Aaron returning with a box marked with medical supply company logos. What's in the box? I asked. Lydia zoomed in on one photo. Can't tell for certain, but based on the markings and size, probably IV equipment. Bags, tubing, medications, standard supplies you'd see in a hospital or clinic. My confusion deepened. Why would he need IV supplies in a hotel room? Lydia's expression was serious. That's what concerns me. I've seen cases where people run illegal medical operations out of hotel rooms. Underground plastic surgery, medication distribution, even unlicensed medical treatments. If your husband has access to pharmaceutical supplies through his job, he could be selling them or using them for something illegal. The possibility hit me like a physical blow. Aaron wasn't having an affair. He was running some kind of illegal medical operation. What do we do? Lydia thought for a moment. I can keep watching, document what he's doing, but if this is illegal medical activity, we might need to involve authorities. People could get hurt. I told her to keep watching, to gather as much evidence as possible. I needed to understand the full scope before deciding what to do. That night, Aaron called me from Phoenix and told me about his fake meetings. I listened to his lies and felt sick. Over the next 2 days, Lydia's surveillance revealed a disturbing pattern. Multiple people came to Aaron's hotel room, always alone, always staying between 1 and 3 hours. They arrived looking nervous and left looking relieved or groggy. Lydia photographed everyone. A young woman in her 20s with a scarf covering her face. An older man who walked with a cane, a middle-aged woman who kept checking over her shoulder. They're patients, Lydia said when we met again Wednesday evening. Your husband is treating people in that hotel room. The question is what kind of treatment and why they're coming to him instead of a real hospital. I looked through the photos, studying the faces of these people seeking Aaron's help. Can you find out who they are? Lydia ran facial recognition on the clearest photos and came back with preliminary identities. The young woman was named Sophie Ramirez, worked as a waitress downtown. The older man was James Fletcher, retired teacher. The middle-aged woman was Diana Kowalski, single mother of 3 who cleaned houses for a living. What do they have in common? I asked. Lydia pulled up their financial records, obtained through methods I didn't ask about. They're all uninsured or underinsured. Sophie has no health insurance. James is on Medicare, but it doesn't cover everything. Diana has high deductible insurance that's basically useless. They're all struggling financially. The picture started coming together in a way I didn't expect. Aaron was providing medical treatment to people who couldn't afford proper health care. But why secretly? Why lie to me about it? I need to get into that hotel room, I said. I need to see what he's doing. Lydia shook her head. Too dangerous. If he's doing something illegal and he catches you, it could get ugly. Let me install a listening device. I have contacts at the hotel who can get into the room when he's out. I agreed, and Lydia worked her connections. The next morning, Thursday, she texted, "Device installed. You can listen live through this app." She sent me a link to download secure software. I put in earbuds and listened to the audio feed from room 412. At first, it was just silence and the sound of Aaron moving around. Then, at 10 a.m., there was a knock on the door. "Come in, it's open," Aaron's voice said. A woman's voice, scared and young. "Are you the doctor?" Aaron's response was gentle. "I'm not a doctor, but I can help you. What's going on?" The woman, who I recognized from Lydia's photos as Sophie Ramirez, started crying. "I have this infection. It's been getting worse for 2 weeks. I went to urgent care, but they said I needed to see a specialist and have tests done. The quote they gave me was $8,000. I don't have that. I don't have insurance. I'm going to die because I can't afford to live." Aaron's voice was calm and compassionate. "You're not going to die. Let me examine you and we'll figure this out." Over the next hour, I listened to Aaron conduct what sounded like a legitimate medical examination. He asked detailed questions about symptoms, took vital signs, and explained what he was looking for. "You have a kidney infection that's progressed pretty far. Normally, this would require hospitalization and intravenous antibiotics, but I can treat you here with the same medications for a fraction of the cost. It'll take 3 days of IV therapy, 2 hours per day. Can you come back tomorrow and Friday?" Sophie was crying with relief. "How much will it cost?" Aaron paused. "Whatever you can afford. If that's $20, fine. If it's nothing, that's fine too. I'm not doing this for money." I sat in my car in a parking lot, listening to this conversation, my entire understanding of my husband rewriting itself. He wasn't having an affair. He wasn't selling drugs. He was running an underground clinic for people who couldn't afford health care. Over the next 3 days, I listened to Aaron treat Sophie's kidney infection with IV antibiotics. I heard him treat James Fletcher's diabetic foot ulcer with proper wound care and medications. I heard him help Diana Kowalski manage her uncontrolled hypertension with prescription medications she couldn't otherwise afford. Every patient had the same story. Medical problems they couldn't afford to treat, insurance that didn't cover enough, bills that would bankrupt them. And Aaron was helping them all, using his access to pharmaceutical supplies and his apparent medical knowledge to provide care outside the legal healthcare system. But where had he learned to do this? Aaron was a pharmaceutical sales rep, not a doctor or nurse. I called Lydia. I need you to investigate Aaron's background, his education, his past, everything before we met. Lydia dug into Aaron's history and called me back with surprising information. Your husband went to medical school. He completed 3 years at Northwestern before dropping out. According to records, he left the program for personal reasons, but his academic performance was excellent. I was stunned. He never told me he went to medical school. He said he studied business and got into pharmaceutical sales after college. Lydia continued. After he left medical school, he worked as a pharmaceutical rep, which is what you know. But here's what's interesting. He's been booking hotel rooms for these underground clinic sessions for the past 3 years. It started small, maybe 1 patient a month. Now he's seeing multiple patients every week. 3 years. Aaron had been running this illegal operation for 3 years, lying to me the entire time. I felt betrayed by the deception even as I struggled to process what he was actually doing. He was helping people, but he was also breaking laws, risking his freedom, and lying to his wife. That night, Aaron came home from his Phoenix trip, and I couldn't look at him. He noticed immediately. Everything okay? You seem distant. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but I held back. I needed to understand the full situation before making any decisions. Just tired. Work has been stressful. He accepted this and we fell into our normal routine, but nothing felt normal anymore. Over the weekend, I wrestled with what to do. Aaron was helping people who desperately needed it, people the healthcare system had failed. But he was also practicing medicine without a license, distributing prescription medications illegally, and lying to everyone including me. I could report him to authorities and he'd go to prison. I could confront him privately and demand he stop. Or I could do nothing and become complicit in his illegal activities. On Sunday evening, I made my decision. I waited until Aaron was in his home office, then walked in and closed the door. We need to talk about the Grandview Plaza Hotel and what you've been doing in room 412. The color drained from Aaron's face completely. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed him the hotel receipt, Lydia's surveillance photos, transcripts of the conversations I'd recorded. I know you've been running an underground clinic. I know you're treating uninsured patients. I know you lied about going to medical school. I know everything, Aaron. Stop lying to me. He collapsed into his desk chair, his hands shaking. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he looked up at me with tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for lying. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was afraid you'd make me stop or report me. And I can't stop. These people need help. I sat down across from him. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Why did you leave medical school? Aaron took a shaky breath and started talking. 3rd year of med school, my dad got sick. Cancer. He had insurance, but it wasn't enough. The co-pays and deductibles bankrupted my family. I had to drop out to work and help pay his medical bills. He died anyway, drowning in debt, and I watched the system destroy him while hospitals and insurance companies profited. I couldn't go back to medical school after that. Couldn't participate in a system that kills people for being poor. He described becoming a pharmaceutical rep, getting access to medications and supplies, learning how the industry worked. I realized I could use my access to help people outside the system. I started small, just giving away samples to people who couldn't afford prescriptions. Then someone asked if I could do more, if I could actually treat them. I still had all my medical knowledge from 3 years of school. I wasn't a doctor, but I knew enough to handle common conditions. 3 years ago, he'd started booking hotel rooms and seeing patients who found him through word of mouth. I charge whatever people can afford. Most pay nothing. Some give me 20 or 50 bucks. I'm not making money from this. I'm barely breaking even on the hotel costs and supplies I can't get for free. I listened to his explanation, understanding his motivations but horrified by the risks. Aaron, you're practicing medicine without a license. You could go to prison. These people could sue you if something goes wrong. What happens if someone dies because you missed something a real doctor would have caught? He nodded, acknowledging the dangers. I know the risks. I've thought about them every single day for 3 years. But what's the alternative? Tell these people to go die because they can't afford care? Sophie would have died from that kidney infection if I hadn't helped her. James would have lost his foot to that ulcer. Diana's blood pressure was so high she was days away from a stroke. The system was going to let all of them suffer because they're poor. I understood his reasoning, even sympathized with it. But I was also furious about the lies. You should have told me. We're married. You don't get to make these decisions alone and lie to me for years. Aaron reached for my hand. You're right. I was wrong to lie. I was afraid you wouldn't understand, that you'd see the illegal part and not the human part. Can you understand why I had to do this? I pulled my hand away. I understand why you wanted to help people. I don't understand why you had to lie to your wife about it. We could have figured this out together. We talked for hours that night, arguing and crying and trying to find common ground. By the end, we'd reached an uneasy agreement. I wouldn't report him to authorities, but he had to be more careful. He had to limit how many patients he saw, document everything meticulously, and prepare for the possibility of getting caught. And no more lies between us. Over the next few weeks, I became reluctantly involved in Aaron's underground clinic. He showed me his records, detailed notes on every patient, every treatment, every medication dispensed. He'd been incredibly careful, following proper medical protocols as much as possible. I'm not just randomly giving people drugs, he explained. I do proper examinations, take histories, make diagnoses. I follow treatment guidelines. I'm doing real medicine just outside the legal system. I met some of his patients when they came to our house for follow-up appointments that Aaron started doing to reduce hotel costs. Sophie, whose kidney infection had resolved completely. James, whose foot had healed and who could walk without pain. Diana, whose blood pressure was now controlled and who cried thanking Aaron for saving her life. These were real people, with real medical problems that the healthcare system had abandoned. Aaron was their only option, illegal or not. But my involvement made me complicit, and I struggled with the moral implications. One evening, I got a call from Lydia. I need to tell you something. I'm legally obligated to report certain information to authorities. What your husband is doing could potentially harm people. I can't stay silent. My heart raced. Lydia, please. He's helping people. No one's been hurt. He's careful and knowledgeable. Lydia was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm going to give you a warning instead of reporting him directly. The DEA has been investigating pharmaceutical supply chain irregularities in this area. They're tracking missing medications and supplies. If they connect those missing supplies to your husband, he'll be arrested. He needs to stop or find a better way to do this. I thanked her and ended the call, then immediately told Aaron, you need to stop. The DEA is investigating. It's too dangerous to continue. Aaron looked devastated. I have 12 regular patients right now who depend on me. If I stop, what happens to them? Over the next few days, we tried to find alternatives. I researched free clinics and charity healthcare programs, but they all had long waiting lists or limited services. Aaron's patients needed ongoing care that these programs couldn't provide consistently. Then I had an idea. What if you went back to medical school, finished your degree, became a legitimate doctor? Then you could help people legally. Aaron shook his head. That would take 4 more years minimum plus residency. These people need help now, not in 7 years. I understood his frustration, but the legal risks were becoming too severe. Then we find doctors who'll help. Doctors who believe in what you're doing and can provide care legally. Aaron looked skeptical. You think doctors are going to risk their licenses to help poor people for free? But I was determined to try. I started reaching out to physicians through online forums and social justice groups. Most ignored my messages or said they couldn't help, but a few responded with interest. One doctor named Isabel Torres agreed to meet with us. She ran a small family practice and had been looking for ways to serve uninsured patients. What you're describing is dangerous and illegal, Dr. Torres said bluntly when we met at her office. But I understand why you're doing it. The system is broken. I see patients every day who can't afford the care they need. She proposed a solution. Aaron could refer his patients to her practice, and she would provide care at significantly reduced costs, or for free when possible. I can't treat everyone for free, but I can do more than I'm doing now, and everything will be legal and documented. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was safer than what Aaron had been doing. Over the next month, Aaron transitioned his patients to Dr. Torres. Some could afford her reduced rates. For others, Dr. Torres worked with charity programs to cover costs. A few patients fell through the cracks, unable to access even subsidized care, and Aaron struggled with abandoning them. Then the DEA showed up at our door. 2 agents in suits, showing badges and asking to speak with Aaron. My heart stopped. This was it. Aaron was going to be arrested. Mr. Whitfield, we're investigating irregularities in pharmaceutical supply chains. Your name has come up in connection with missing medications from several distributors. Can you explain that? Aaron glanced at me, then back at the agents. I'd like to speak with a lawyer before answering any questions. The agents nodded. That's your right, but we want you to know we're building a case. If you cooperate now, things will go easier for you later. After they left, Aaron and I sat in stunned silence. I need to turn myself in, he said quietly. If I cooperate, maybe they'll go easy on me, but I'm probably going to prison. I grabbed his hand. We'll get a lawyer. A good one. We'll fight this. We hired a criminal defense attorney named Raymond Koch who specialized in healthcare fraud cases. He reviewed everything. Aaron's records, his patient files, Dr. Torres' testimony about the care Aaron had provided. This is complicated, Koch said. On one hand, you committed multiple felonies, practicing medicine without a license, theft of pharmaceutical supplies, distribution of controlled substances. On the other hand, you didn't profit from any of this. You were providing legitimate medical care to people in need. The intent matters. Koch negotiated with the DEA and prosecutors for weeks. In the meantime, Aaron's patients learned about the investigation. They started writing letters to the prosecutor's office, describing how Aaron had saved their lives, how he'd been their only hope when the system failed them. Sophie wrote about her kidney infection and how she'd been preparing to die because she couldn't afford treatment. James described his diabetic foot ulcer and how Aaron's care had prevented an amputation that would have cost him his independence. Diana explained her uncontrolled hypertension and how Aaron's treatment had prevented a potentially fatal stroke. Dozens of letters arrived at the prosecutor's office, all saying the same thing. Aaron Whitfield was a hero, not a criminal. The media got wind of the story, and it exploded. Local news ran features about the pharmaceutical rep running an underground clinic for uninsured patients. National outlets picked it up. Suddenly, Aaron was a symbol of everything wrong with American healthcare, a man driven to break the law because the system was so fundamentally broken. Public opinion was overwhelmingly on his side, but the law was clear. He'd committed serious crimes. The prosecutor offered a plea deal. Aaron would plead guilty to practicing medicine without a license and misappropriation of pharmaceutical supplies. He'd serve 2 years in prison, followed by 3 years probation. In exchange, they'd drop the more serious charges that carried much longer sentences. Koch advised taking the deal. 2 years is better than 20, and with good behavior you might get out in 18 months. Aaron looked at me with hollow eyes. I'm so sorry. I dragged you into this. I ruined our lives. I squeezed his hand. You tried to help people. That's not nothing. The sentencing hearing was packed with Aaron's former patients, Dr. Torres, advocates for healthcare reform, and journalists. The judge listened to testimony from multiple people about Aaron's character and the care he'd provided. Then she spoke directly to Aaron. Mr. Whitfield, what you did was illegal. The law exists to protect patients from unqualified individuals who might harm them, even with good intentions. You did not have the proper training or licensing to practice medicine. However, I also recognize that you were responding to a genuine crisis in our healthcare system. People were suffering and dying because they couldn't afford care, and you tried to help them. She sentenced him to 2 years in prison, as agreed in the plea deal. Aaron reported to federal prison 3 weeks later. I visited him every week, updating him on the advocacy work that had grown from his case. Healthcare reform organizations cited Aaron's story as evidence that the system needed fundamental change. Dr. Torres expanded her practice specifically to serve uninsured patients, funded by donations that poured in after the media coverage. Some of Aaron's former patients started a nonprofit called Second Chance Medical, which connected uninsured individuals with volunteer doctors willing to provide free or low-cost care. The movement Aaron had accidentally started was changing lives, but he was watching it all from prison. 18 months later, Aaron was released on good behavior. He came home gaunt and exhausted, but also strangely at peace. I had a lot of time to think, he told me that first night. I made mistakes. I should have found legal ways to help people, but I don't regret trying. Dr. Torres offered him a job as a medical advocate at her practice, helping patients navigate insurance and find resources. It wasn't practicing medicine, but it was helping people in a legal way. Aaron threw himself into the work, using his knowledge and passion to connect patients with care. 2 years after his release, I was working in my home office when Aaron came in with news. Isabel wants to open a second clinic specifically for uninsured patients. She's asking if I want to be the operations director. I'd help manage everything, train staff on working with vulnerable populations, and build relationships with pharmaceutical companies to get donated supplies. I looked at my husband, this man who'd gone to prison for trying to save lives, who'd lied to me but for reasons I'd come to understand if not fully forgive. Will you actually tell me what you're doing this time? No more secret hotel rooms? Aaron smiled, the first real smile I'd seen in years. No more secrets, I promise. 5 years after I found that hotel receipt, Aaron's work had expanded into a network of free clinics serving thousands of uninsured patients across 3 cities. He'd found a legal way to do what he'd been doing illegally, helping people the system had abandoned. Our marriage had survived betrayal, prison, and public scrutiny. Standing beside him at the grand opening of the 5th clinic, watching patients receive care they desperately needed, I understood that sometimes the worst things people do come from the best intentions. Aaron had broken the law to save lives, and while I could never condone the lies, I couldn't condemn the love behind them either. The system had failed these people first. Aaron had just tried to catch them when they fell. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.